All right, everybody, thank you for joining us at the Gainesville PowerShell user group. We are fortunate enough to have an amazing guest yet again, Doug Fink, longtime Microsoft MVP. He's been crushing it with ChatGPT and PowerShell AI lately. You've probably been seeing his stuff. That's why you're here. Doug, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. And thanks for inviting me. Really appreciate it. Talk about my two favorite topics, PowerShell and GPT. Can I do a couple of self-promotion things?
Plug away, plug away.
Awesome. So I'm going to show some stuff at the end about ChatGPT 4 and what I've integrated inside of my PowerShell AI module. And I'll drop this in the chat. But tomorrow I'm going to be doing this premiere of, I've recorded a bunch of stuff. I'll put this in the chat. You can hit the notification. Be great if you did also subscribe to the channel. I'll be having a lot more videos coming because AI is just changing every week. And I can also drop in there. I run the New York City virtual group. I'm going to have somebody on that it's going to be talking about mermaid syntax diagrams, how to do diagramming. It's different than Visio and so on and so forth. Wrote a book. His name is Ashley. Great job. Really liked it. So I asked him if you can come on and chat, and he's going to do a presentation. And of course, at the end, I'm going to do a little bit of some stuff with it inside of Polyglot notebooks, interactive notebooks, which I won't talk about too much, but I'm also going to do some ChatGPT with it. What else? And then in May, we have Matthew Doust. You might know him. He's going to be talking about his stuff that he's doing with Hitchhiker's Guide to PowerShell. And that's going to be in May. So we'll drop some of those links in the chat, and then you can sign up. Be great. Awesome. So what I've got here tonight, let's see, is I'm going to go through a couple of slides, a bunch of slides. I guess we almost have about 45 minutes or so. And I'm going to get to the demos. It's demo heavy, but the slides are really kind of just like level set everybody. I think that are important concepts around this new stuff called AI, GPT, transformers, and blah, blah, blah. We're not going to go too deep into the mathematics and whatnot, or how transformers work, or how they tune this thing or train it. We're just going to see some straightforward examples. So this first slide I have up here is today, ChatGPT 4, the latest and greatest, turned 15 days old. And we should a little shout out happy birthday, which I think is very cool. And so I just want to say what this talk is not going to be about. It's not going to be a talk about ethics. It's not going to be talking about AI alignment. It's not going to be talking about terminators. It's not going to be talking about, I'm not going to talk about the end of society, all which are possible. But if you want to drop by New York City, we have a couple of beers. We can talk about that ad nauseum. What I want to talk about is about embracing the power. Okay, so AI is an emerging skill. So this name right here in the middle, Andre Karpathy, definitely find him on Twitter. I think his Twitter handle is Karpathy, his last name. He was one of the co-founders of the OpenAI AI team, OpenAI AI team, when it was founded by Sam Altman and Elon Musk and those folks. He was the guy that was set up the AI pieces. He then went on to join Elon Musk at Tesla to work on AI and FSD, self-driving. About a month ago, he announced going back to OpenAI, and that's when they delivered GPT-4. And he's all now, rumor has it, he's working on GPT-5. He's probably one of the top folks in the planet. If you get on so he's got a Twitter feed, he's got a YouTube feed. He talks about the stuff down to earth. He doesn't go through all the mathematics. He talks about possibilities, how to work this thing. Really impressive individual. So his tweet a few weeks ago, the hottest new programming language is English. And we're going to hopefully show you a couple of those things today. So also bring your attention down to the bottom of the screen. People talking about what AI is. It's not going to do anything. They can't even do today's date. You know, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's going to take all of our jobs. I agree with AI will not replace you. A person using AI will. So, you know, that's I think that's like the opening bid, get level set on that. So ChatGPT, OpenAI, it's all about prompts. and you might have heard things like prompt engineering. It's probably going to be the new thing. Some people think it's passe. It may be. It's only been several months, maybe a year old, but it's a fundamental way that we interact. It's text that we type in to get the model to generate a response. Okay, it's like I say, your prompt is essentially how you program the model. If you provide minimum effort prompts, you'll get low quality results. Put another way, ask simple questions, you get simple answers. This is not a search engine. You can use it like a search engine, and then you can go, oh, I'd rather use Google. Okay. But if you can learn how to start to craft what you're saying, you may typically go past a single sentence. You'll see how you can improve your results. So let's take a little quick example. I'm going to show you ChatGPT on the web. Okay, so here you can see I'm actually using GPT-4. And when I drop that down, you see a few things for me. I have a default 3.5, a legacy, and something called plugins. So I get all these options because I spend $20 a month. We were talking about that early on. I spend $20 a month. I get access. I don't ever have a capacity. Well, I shouldn't ever. Now with GPT-4, you do get capacity issues but with the GPT-3 stuff, it's always on, always available, always fast. 4 is a little slower, which I'll be showing tonight. And again, for $20, that's great. Also, because I'm a paid user, I get access to new stuff. So plugins is a brand new thing that they announced. And I won't talk about those, but it basically lets you write a plugin, if you want to think Snap-in for PowerShell, even though that's 100 years old. It's the same concept. And now it lets you do things like people are starting to write connections so you can connect to real-time information like stocks, blah, 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 which is good and dangerous. But that means you can actually start asking questions. It can go through your plugin, and then you can start seeing stuff about what's going on day to day. Whereas typically ChatGPT is sandboxed, doesn't have access to the internet, doesn't have access to real-time data. It's only been trained to 2021. So let's see if I'm going to just make this a little bit smaller. I apologize. I think I'm going to make it smaller or bigger. Okay, so I'm going to type some stuff down here. I think I copied. Yeah. So if I come up here and I just do a minimal effort prompt and I say how to learn PowerShell, ChatGPT is going to go off and start telling me some things, step-by-step guides, understand the basics, this is all pretty cool. And ChatGPT only came out in November. Early on, it didn't even give you as good information as this. Like now we're getting actual real links to GitHub. And I don't even think this was over the other day. It was that good. Now it talks about PowerShell Ice, which, maybe people still use, but at the same time, people are using VS Code or other type of editors. So that's kind of all right. And then people go, well, how come you're not telling me about books and whatnot? Okay, well, let's go back and then say, let's list 5 books. And I'll even do a new chat. And we'll pick it again, GPT-4. And as you see down here, GPT-4 currently has a cap of 25 messages every 3 hours. That's because hundreds of millions of people are using this. So there are many great books to learn. So this gets a little bit better, and this is still a minimal effort prompt. And of course, we get Don Jones and Jeff Hicks' book. And if I started to refine what I said, or the prompt, list 5 books, I can get specific, like list 5 books about, Active Directory, list 5 books by specific, like, Ed Wilson, for those who remember that. I have to come up with an Ed Wilson book. And the only issue I have with what this comes back with, it doesn't list my book. But hey, can't win everything. So this is people get on and they type in, like, as if they're doing a search criteria, and they go, well, this is no big deal. I can just get this on Google and I'll be fine. We'll take a look at some deeper prompts. So let's move on. So the massive warning and is don't trust anything ChatGPT provides, right? So if you're going to go and talk to it about code and say, hey, give me a piece of code that does X, Y, Z, don't trust it. You don't know what it's going to do. AI does something they call hallucinating. You can define and work with your prompts and do good prompt engineering to help keep it on the rails. But you'll find that if you ask certain kinds of open-ended, not certain kind, but if you ask questions that are kind of ambiguous or it doesn't understand, it will actually make things up. It will actually make up function names. It'll make up things that don't exist. So pay attention. You wouldn't push code to production that you coded on your first attempt. At least I wouldn't. Maybe some people do. If you pair programmed with a team member, you wouldn't push your code to production after doing that. And yet, at the end of the day, you are responsible for ensuring the quality and reliability of your code. And this goes for people. Andrew brought up a neighbor of his who's using it to cheat at college. Awesome. Sorry, I don't mean to disparage anyone. And, you're responsible for the essays. There are people that are submitting for call for papers. They're submitting sessions and they're using ChatGPT to generate the sessions, and it has spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, not typically, but mistakes about the technology that they're going to talk about. So yeah, it's a great tool. At the end of the day, you got to take a look at it, tweak it. And a lot of times it can get you 98% of the way there, sometimes 20%, but that's what, it's about learning the AI skill set. But you are responsible. AI is a tool. Check your automation bias. So what is automation bias? It's the tendency for us humans to favor suggestions from automated decision-making systems. Okay. You got to begin to, so when you're using it, you got to, I know that I've been using it for quite a long time. And that's something I constantly have in my head, that whatever's going to be said here, it could be completely wrong. It could be problematic. Uh-oh. Did I get knocked off? No. Okay.
No, we're here.
Cool. Okay, so check your bias, and that'll help you. Quick slide on ThoughtWorks, if you ever heard of them. They put out a tech radar, and they have basically 4 categories that talk about what do you do with technology? Do you proceed with caution? Do you explore with the goal of understanding? Do you pursue it, that it's important to understand, or should you adopt it? In my opinion, we are definitely at the trial. It's important to understand how to build up this capability. Again, AI won't replace you, but someone who knows this stuff will. Quick stats: ChatGPT crossed 1 million users in the first 5 days. We'll get back to that in a second about what it did over a couple of months. So there's a lot of buzz around this. It's in the newspapers everywhere. All the tech stuff is getting involved and talking about it. Many disciplines are banning the use of AI. Educational institutions, colleges and universities are banning it. Art competitions, people have used it to create art and have won. And then the people say, well, wait a minute, that's not good. And they ban it. Stack Overflow, not allowing AI answers to be posted. But other people are seeing that, that people need to be taught and how to learn how to use this new tool. And I am definitely in that camp. If you learn how to, some people say, well, using this stuff is like cheating if you're going to do PowerShell code. And my response is, well, is it cheating if you pull out a piece of information out of a magazine or a book or from Google or for Stack Overflow and you put it in your code? No. So I don't think that's cheating, and I don't think using this tool is either. Couple slides on what's going on. There's been a ton of changes since I've been doing this talk. Too many to talk about. Microsoft Bing, Bing chats out there, uses GPT-4. I think it's all free. It's in the MS Edge only, I believe. But it's, if you want to get a free version, I believe it's free. So you can actually use that to check this stuff out. Some stats on GPT-4. Basically passes every exam, and it doesn't just pass. It goes it's pretty close to the top of the class and further in some. The bar exam, it passed LSATs, GREs, AP, SATs. It now takes text and image prompts. You can take a picture of something and you can send it to GPT, and it can do a ton of things. One of the examples and demos they did when they went live with it, they just drew a bunch of, they wrote text. They wrote out some text on a piece of paper and said, I want to create a website that does the joke of the day, puts a couple of brackets as a button and said, click here for your joke. Next one, it said, click here for yesterday's joke in brackets, took a picture, sent it up, and ChatGPT generated a JavaScript page working with HTML that actually worked. That's not available to everybody. I don't have access to that yet, but this is where it's going. Improvements in performance and steerability, which I'll show a couple of things, hopefully, and still hallucinates, but it's been significantly reduced. And it was trained on Microsoft AI supercomputers. So Azure is out of control. So if you take a look, this is the time it took to get to 100 million users across different products that have been released. So ChatGPT took 2 months to go to 100 million users. TikTok took over a year, Instagram 2 years, so on and so forth. This thing has been lit. It's on fire. People are interested. They really want to know what's going on, and they're using it and they're trying it in many, many, many different ways with varying results. What we're about to see in AI has not been seen since the launch of Google Search or the iPhone. And I'll throw in there for us graybeard wizards, since the dawn of the PC. We're heading into the next golden era. That's my opinion. You may or may not agree. Okay, let's do some demos. Any questions? Or everybody just ready to go? Good.
Pretty ready to go. If we wanted to follow along, I guess we should probably create an account at OpenAI or whatever and get started there.
Good point. Oops. Gonna get up to the right screen. So yeah, if you wanted to play along and if you want to use my PowerShell AI module, let's see, this is how I get to it. Playground, OpenAI. So if you go, can you drop that link in, or do you want me to?
I can grab that.
Here, let me, I got it. Sorry.
Okay.
So if you go there and so you go to API references and you can figure out where, and it's up on personal as well. You can view your API keys. If you don't have one, you can get one. If you sign up now, you get $18 of credit. It expires in 3 months. And I can tell you, you won't use the $18 in 3 months, especially when you're just beginning to get your feet, figure out how this stuff works. So that's where you go. That's where you get your key, and you'll set that key in an environment variable. And then you can, the PowerShell AI module works with all their APIs, and it works with that key, and you should be good to go. And that's how you can play along. Hope that explains that. And if you go to my GitHub, and I'll drop that in, PowerShell AI. I have videos on there. I have write-ups on there, and it also walks you through how to get the key, how to set things up, and you'll be good to go. Cool. Hope that helps. So let's take a look at what we want to do first. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So here is that font good?
I can read it. Anyone else need it bigger?
If somebody wants, looks good. All right, we'll go with that. Cool, thank you. So first up, so I've got several functions that you can use inside of here, and they're for different reasons. I have one called GPT, generative pre-trained transformers, and you can use that to that's the raw version of what is 1 + 5. So this is the raw version of getting right to GPT. It gives you access to all the parameters that you can set. You can set the model, the temperature, max tokens, whole bunch of different things. There you go.
Hey,
That's
Doug,
yeah.
One thing, could you just control and then press the plus button one time for Steve and Jed?
Yeah. We'll give them 2. How's that? Is that
good
better?
to me. Steven, what you think? I think that's a bit bigger. Looks good.
I can probably go up another notch. Cool. So GPT is one of the things you want to use. That's you get straight to, you can actually use that at the command line. Excellent. Glad that worked out. You can use it at the command line, and you can use it in your scripts, which is how I build some of the additional things you'll see. So another thing I have is something called AI. Let's see if I can get to, cool. So I have something called AI, and you can do the same thing, like what's 1 + 4, and it works no problem, but it has a extra piece to it. Now, this is going to be fun to do this live demos. And that didn't look like it was too happy. See, there it is hallucinating. I can sit there and say, what is? And that's a better prompt. So if I do 1 + 4, it's like, I have no clue, but I'll make some stuff up. So now, what else can the AI function do? So here I have a GitHub repo. I have a couple of files. If I do git status, I can see I have untracked files in here. So if you're familiar with Git, so I haven't checked these in. I haven't added them to my repo. So what's cool about the AI function, I think, is I can do the git status, and then I can pipe it to AI, and then I can create another prompt and say, write a detailed commit message. Let's see what it does. So there you go. I hate writing commit messages. Now, if I had more stuff that's tracked, untracked, modified, et cetera, AI would come back and give me some different information. So I can pipe any kind of data from the left-hand side using typical PowerShell piping, pipe it into AI, and then I can put this is my prompt that I wrap around that data, send up to AI to see what what it's going to tell me. So that's one, and you can tell maybe from the sirens that I do live in New York City. So I apologize for that. So that's another cool way to work with this. Let's now we can do there. Let's see what I want to do. I'm going to go play with Polyglot notebooks. So Polyglot notebook, this is an interactive notebook. They just generally released as well. It's in Visual Studio Code. You can download, if you go to the .NET Interactive GitHub repo, it tells you how to set this up. It's basically a Visual Studio Code plugin. I believe you have to also install .NET SDK. It shows that's pretty easy to do. And then what you have is, if you see this blue line, let's see if I can make this a little bigger. You can, this is a cell. And if you look at the bottom right, like this is also a cell. You can see this is PowerShell code. On the bottom over here on the right-hand side, you can see it says PWSH PowerShell code. This is a cell, like as if I was typing at the command line. This up top is a markdown. If I double click it, it looks like markdown. And I have a table. I've got even some CSS in this. And if I hit Control Enter, it renders it for me. So it's like executable documentation. So I can describe what this demo is. I can say, okay, I'm going to load the environment. And then if I want to run the code, I can either click the run button here. Awesome. This may not work. Okay, cool. So it asked me for the kernel that I was going to use. I clicked on, yes, the Polyglot notebooks are awesome. So I clicked the run, and it actually .sourced that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a helper function. We're going to run this, and yep, DaVinci, cool. So let's take a look at, I'm going to create a function in PowerShell called convert from language to code. What does that mean? And then here I'm going to use, so this GPT completion is alias to GPT that I did on the command line. So now I'm going to use it in my own script inside of another function. And I'm going to build out a prompt. So I'm going to use a here string, right? @ double quote. And I'm just using English because it's the newest programming language. And I'm going to say, translate this from 12102, and that's all based on what I'm sending into it. So 0 is the prompt, $, it's a good night for lots of noise. $prompt, $from, and $2. Right. So let's see how this works. I'm going to send in, this is a piece of Python, print hello world. So I'm in another cell inside the Polyglot notebook. And this is the code, print hello world. And I'm going to convert from language that code from Python to PowerShell. So that's the prompt that I'm going to build up and ask it to do the conversion. And it's cool. You can see like it tells you how long things are taking. And of course, it's Wednesday night. So a lot of people are using it. That usually takes less than 2 seconds. So it converted the print hello world into write host hello world. You may not like it. We can't hear the background at all. Awesome. Thank goodness for good mics. So let's try and do something else with that. So now I want to say, well, you know what? I want to convert that Python to Rust. Maybe I'm playing around with Rust. And there it is, print line bang. That's a macro in Rust. And I'm saying, okay, hello world. So I'm calling my PowerShell function and I'm fleshing out a nice little prompt, multiple lines, using the hashtags that has meaning to certain degrees. And I'm able to start playing with converting languages. Now, this is a simple print hello, but I've done much more complicated Python, especially since OpenAI is really caters to the Python world, where I've taken that stuff and said, hey, what does this do? And converted to PowerShell for me, and off we go. So let's take a look at languages. Let's take a look at curl. Now, notice in this code, I'm going to add a little thing called I'm an expert in PowerShell. That helps the model, right? That helps it like get tuned in to what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to give it a piece of let's clear these out. That's good. And I'm going to say convert code, what's inside that string, from curl to PowerShell. Run that up. See how long it takes. That was 2 seconds. And that looks pretty good to me, that it just converted that curl into an invoke web request in PowerShell, including knowing the method, being post, pulled out the headers, did the body as a nicely formed JSON. Again, I wouldn't trust that, but it's definitely getting me to where I want to go. I don't like curl. So there's oftentimes I see things that are being done and I'm like, oh, how can I easily do that? Question, can I do things like convert Cisco iOS switch config to Juniper? Good question, Clay. Spend the $20 and take a gamble. Yeah, I would agree, David. It's this stuff can. ChatGPT has been trained on huge amounts of human text and code and et cetera, et cetera. All right, so now what else can you do with it? Well, let's say I have a piece of code and I don't know what it does, right? Somebody, you can ask about the JFK files. Yes, you can. Fun times. So I'm going to do this in this piece of string. I have a function called greet. It has a parameter string. I typed it with a sorry, it has a parameter called name. I typed it as string, and I'm just printing out hello $name in a string interpolation. So let's see. I'm going to pass that up to GPT, and I'm going to steer it with the explain this PowerShell code. And this is a PowerShell function called greet that takes a single parameter of type string. The function simply prints out the string hello followed by the string parameter that was passed in. Awesome. This can handle much more complicated functions. So if you get a new piece of code, drop it into chat GPT, and you can ask it to explain it. And it works with more than PowerShell. If you're working with C++, you can change PowerShell to C++ to help steer it better. Let's play with some SQL. So let's say I want to, for SQL, create a customer table with the following columns, right? 7 columns, right? So straight away, I'm going to drop that in regular English. Remember, it's the hottest new programming language. Click run. And in 2.5 seconds, that looks like good SQL to me. So that's pretty cool. If I wanted to, I could take this and I can copy paste the create table that somebody gave me, and I can drop it in and say, explain this SQL to me. And it'll come back and try to give me an English understanding of what an integer and a primary key is, etc. So this is how AI can help you, so this is how AI can help you be better, faster, and more confident. You can take code, convert it. You can then take that code and say, explain it. Getting Zoom bombed. Yeah, maybe it's just following me. So what you're saying is that if you want to automatically create the explanation and help files for a module you've written, Clay, you're taking all my good stuff tonight. But yes, that is correct. But we might even get to see some examples. So even stepping outside of programming that we kind of love and know. So David, your trial credits. Okay, so what you want to do is go in and just put your credit card in. You can actually say, listen, I only want to spend $2 a month. It's totally worth it. You can't afford not to pay for ChatGPT and the APIs to play with this stuff. You'll be surprised you're not going to even spend a couple of bucks a month if you use it that much. I am using GitHub Copilot or at Help Code and Docs. Absolutely. Good point, Sean. So what we're seeing here is that the Get Chat GPT-3 completion is using the same models and going up to the same engines that the website does, as well as GitHub Copilot and all the rest of the goodies. So if you look at Google Chat, or I'm sorry, Bing Chat, it's going to a newer model, GPT-4. All the Microsoft 365 stuff is going to the newer models, but everything's basically going to the same place. Anyway, Drew, I see Joe's first. Okay, so let's, so here's one. Use GraphViz. I don't know how many people know about the dot language. GraphViz, so you can give diagrams. Give a directed graph containing 3 nodes, A0, 1, and 2. Draw arrows from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and A2 back to 0. And I'm not going to demo it, but in fact, that is exactly correct syntax to do that diagramming, which I'll show with a Mermaid at the talk next week. Everybody loves regex. Not totally true. I'm not a fan, but write a regex matching a URL. And that's how it took 2 seconds for it to come back with that. Give me a fact check if that's correct. It looks good to me, but you can start playing around just by writing basic English. Say, this is what I'd like to do. Match a telephone, match these zip codes, match other types of things, whatever you want to do. And ask GPT to do that conversion for you or generate that stuff. Other English requests, list 10 science fiction books. And let's see what it comes up with. Awesome. So there's 10 science fiction books. You may agree or not. 1984. I think the last time I showed this, somebody said, hey, aren't we living that? And that's pretty true. Sean, you haven't tried GPT? Sure you have. You're using Copilot. That's GPT. That was the original GPT. So you already know when you do a £sign inside of, and you put a comment inside of your stuff, or you're using it for documentation, that's using the same thing we're doing here. So if you've already been primed to understand how to work in prompt engineering. We're not going to, so you can use max tokens. What that is I think I defaulted to 256 in the module. You can go up whatever the maximum is for the particular model you're using, which is like 2,000 to 4,000 tokens. And you can see here, there's a hyphen stop 11. There are stopping conditions that you can put on the model. This used to be needed in order to get 10, because sometimes we go to 12 or 15. We're not going to talk about that, but that's all up on their website if you want to read deeper on it. Let's play with some deductive reasoning. Okay. So you ready, folks? This is going to be a race. Who can answer faster, you or AI? Question is, in the hockey game, Mitchell scored more points than William, but fewer points than Austin. 2 questions. Who scored the most? Who scored the fewest? Let's run it up. And I doubt you finished reading it again to figure out the answer. I know I couldn't. Austin scored the most. William scored the fewest, right? So if you read it again, Mitchell scored more than William. William fewer than Austin. So Austin scored the most and William scored the fewest. So this is really, I signed up for Copilot too, but so about to do a comparison. You can compare, they're basically the same. I should say this, ChatGPT on the web and GitHub Copilot, they have prompts that they're building and using as you're typing. So Copilot inside of Visual Studio Code looks at the file name, looks at the file types, looks at what you're doing. It can actually, I think it actually starts reading more of the code that you're dealing with underneath, like if you're doing PowerShell modules or different scripts. So it can help you more than like what I'm showing you here or what ChatGPT on the web can do. So yeah, so the prompts are different, but they're all using the same backend models. So, but definitely check it out. These are tools, get used to the tools. I don't think it's going to be more than a few months that you're just going to have them. And once you start playing them for a while, when they aren't working, which is rarely, it's like, oh man, I wish I had Copilot running today, and I wish they weren't down. So that's doing deductive reasoning. Moving over to my next favorite topic in Excel. If a cell A1 is less than 10, show yes. If not, show no. That's what I'm asking. So that's pretty vague. That's a minimal effort prompt in my book, but that's exactly what I want. That's a formula that I could actually copy and paste into my Excel sheet, or use my import Excel module and use it like that. So GPT, I didn't use the word Excel. I used the word cell, and somehow it knew to give me an Excel formula. Color me impressed. Now I can copy paste that exact formula, drop it into this next cell, explain that Excel formula for me. Now, this formula checks the value, A1, and if it's less than 10, returns the text yes. Otherwise, it returns the text no. If somebody asked me a question to explain that, I would never be that detailed, right? I would be like, it returns yes or no, depending on the number, something like that. Okay, let's do some more. So here's a cool one. So these are cool things to what I'm going to show here to kind of plant a seed. Remember these things. List the top 5 vegetables and terms. Now here's as a markdown table. This is like the little tricks we used to learn back in Google of like how to get it to search for different things. And this is how you can help steer the model. So let's run that. And it actually comes back with vegetable term, and it does a nice little markdown table. Let's copy paste it. And we'll show the power of interactive notebooks. I created a markdown cell. I'm going to paste that in there, and I'm going to run it. I hope. Yeah, or I'm going to render it. And I get a nice little table. I use this a lot when I'm doing markdown write-ups for my modules and whatnot. Maybe I'll want to get a bunch of information that I don't feel like looking up in Google. And I'll say, go do X, Y, and Z. Give me a table. And then I copy paste it, drop it in my markdown, done. Sean, I'd love to hear how you use it in GitHub Copilot. I'm guessing it's a little bit similar, but maybe not. Anyway, add that to your toolkit. And what I just showed you here. I only have 10 minutes left. So I'm going to show you here. Let's come back to ChatGPT on the web, and it should work there, but it gets even cooler. Shows me a nice little table, right? Already rendered. If you're doing Copilot, it will do it the way we see here at the command line. So that's pretty slick. And and this also works in Bing Chat. So again, it's the same models on the back ends, and you can use these things like as markdown table, etc., to steer the model. So definitely put your $20 down so you can get the faster GPT on the web. Put your credit card down for the playground, or for the API that you can use the playground that they have, or you can actually use it you'll need that to use these PowerShell functions. It's absolutely worth it. Again, you can't afford not to do it. This is going to be the way we're doing things in 3 to 6 months, and you don't want to be left out. Okay, so that's let's take a look at a couple of more. We're still good on time, Andrew?
Yeah, we're great. You're rocking it.
Okay, so let's do this, because I really want to get to a couple of things, especially about GPT-4. So here's one. Create a PowerShell key value map where country is key for these cities. Oh, how sweet is that? Is that correct? I need fact checkers. So I run this on a regular basis, but because they keep updating the models, I never know when it's going to make me look bad. So key value map where the country is key, and New York, Paris, Berlin, London. Looks good to me, I think. Or maybe it's backwards. I think it went the other way. Yeah, that's okay. So now I want to show you the same thing, but instead of I'll show you the other function I have called Copilot. So I have a function called Copilot. Run that up. It does a little bit different. So it brings back the exact same code. Did it do it near? Did I say city? I think that's sad. Went backwards. Okay, so comes back, and what I do is I wrap it in a visual, and I number the lines that come back in terms of code. It is backwards, so it's hallucinating. Now I'm sure I could tweak this. I know I could tweak this prompt, but I'm not going to. So it comes back. I wrap it in a visual. Q is the question that you asked, and it numbers the lines. And then you have an options. You can press enter or N. It doesn't do anything. If you press Y, it'll actually run the code. But even cooler, or as cool, you can type E, and I'm asking it to take that and explain it. I don't know if you can see that. This code creates a hash table called cities. The hash table is a data structure. And the @ symbol indicates that the hash table is being created using a script block. Maybe, maybe not. So this is some of the stuff that you can do. And let's run it again in Copilot. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it. So now $cities, I think. Hey, my demos are busted. Oh, well, that worked the other day. Did I update this thing wrong? My apologies for showing bad stuff. So it did it backwards, and the code didn't. It's very sad. Anyway, so $cities works. There we go. Even though the values and the stuff is wrong, but let's try some more. Let's see if AI can make me look bad. Let's see. So you can actually do AI, and you can say, give me the first 5 presidents. And there you go as a markdown table. And you can then say things like, you may, well, who knows, presidents, terms. I'm going out on a limb here, VP, party. But it's good to see that this thing actually hallucinates. So there you go. So now I have a markdown table of presidents with their the terms, the VP and the party. Would have to fact check this. I can copy paste that, and I'm good to go, or if it's correct. Let's take another one that's kind of cool. Have no idea if this is going to work anymore. It's been a bit. I apologize. I didn't run this yesterday to make sure everything works. Very bad presentation person. So I'm going to say, I'm going to pipe this into a for each, Go, Rust, Python, and PowerShell. I'm going to create a custom object. The $_ is the language. So it's going to come back with languages Go, Rust, Python, and PowerShell. And then a GPT, I want to write a full hello world program in that language. Wow, it's even faster today. And I'm going to go with, that looks really good. That looks like a Go program that does the main format, does the print. There's a Rust that should be compilable. So now, of course, hello world is simple. This may not be a viable concept, but it gives you a sense, because now I have PowerShell and GPT connected. I can start taking this to different levels. That's one of the reasons I built it. I was like, well, once I get this into PowerShell, I can start having some interesting fun. And I think I am. So let's see what else we got. I think what I want to do, we've got about 7 minutes. Let's see what's good. I want to just take a look at, okay, let's talk. So I'm going to have this in a video tomorrow morning. So I think I posted the video in a chat, or the link to my YouTube channel. You definitely want to subscribe and get notifications on that, because I put up all the virtual meetings I do there. I cover topics on PowerShell and more, like GPT, notebooks, on and on and on. So when I do post those short videos, you'll get notified and you can take a look. So I've integrated GPT-4. Okay. So when we do things like the Copilot, like AI, what this is called, this is basically text in, text out. Awesome, super powerful, tremendous. What GPT-4 and GPT-3.5 bring is a conversational mode, where you're basically sending in a conversation and you're getting a message back. And when you work with the payloads correctly, what you're doing is you're giving it context and memory, so it knows what you're doing over time. Now, I have this set up to work with GPT-4 as a default. if you join me tomorrow, I'll show you how you can set that easily to 3.5, which is available. You don't have to pay for that, whereas 4 you do. So what does that mean? So the difference is, and I didn't give it any examples. So I can do something like chat. Let's do show. This is going to be fun. This is going to hallucinate. I'm going to do it on purpose. Numbers, because you can learn from the hallucinations, believe it or not. Show numbers between 1 and 10. I have no idea what it's going to. Oh, let's do it again. 1 and 10. Okay, I like that. Now, typically, now notice on the left-hand side, I've set up my prompt on my machine. It knows when a chat's, I have a thing called test chat in progress. And I also ask it to give me the provider I'm using and the model that I'm using. So as you change the models and the providers, which I show a little bit of tomorrow, your prompt will change, so you know where you're at. So now I don't have to go back up to that prompt and do anything. What I can do is I can say, use PowerShell. See if it, now this is using GTP4 and I'm using conversational mode. That's an awesome prompt idea. Thank you. So there you go. Now I don't like that particular, and now it's giving me, information around everything. I don't like that implementation, but notice it also gives me what they call a fence block. That's a GitHub markdown technique. That makes it easy to parse as well, but we won't go into that. That's a topic for a different day. Okay, so who really wants a copy of Doug's profile script? That'll cost you $10 each. Anyway, I'll post that. That's no problem. So now I don't like that particular solution. So what I'm going to do is say, make it a 1. Now notice I'm not going back to my original prompt and adding things onto it. I could put this all into one single prompt. I'm having a conversation with GPT, right? It's remembering what I'm saying. So that's a little better. Now I can take that further, but I want to move on to something else. Okay, so it does a for each, does a write host. I can say, don't do a write host and use a where object, because that's where I really want it to be. So that's the point of having conversations. And that's the power of learning how to do prompt engineering. Now, this is doing it in a chat. Again, you can string all these questions that I asked into a single chat, into a single prompt, and then you can make it work. And it should work. It ought to work. Now, I have something called get chat session. Let's see if I get this right. I have too many functions. Get chat messages. And this is now showing you everything that I just did. Shows you the role. There's 3 roles. There's a system role, a user role, and assistant role. You don't really have to worry about that. So you're the user, assistant is GPT, and it shows you basically a transcript of what's been going on. I also store this in a file. More tomorrow morning when I present that. Let's see if I can do an FL. Right. So now you can see, oops. So now you can see everything that you just did. Now you can take this, you can just get the content, you can store it in a file, you can do all kinds of good things with this. This is really powerful. Now, let's say I'm going to stop the chat. And that just turns that off. And what I want to do now is say something like chat list. Well, what is the capital of Spain? Right. It's gonna have France. Let's see if I have France in here. Get that right. Now watch. So it gives me the capital of Spain correctly. And then all I'm saying is and France. So it remembers within context. It's like, oh, you're asking about capitals. Okay. Let's just say the word USA. So I'm like having a conversation with a buddy. Now, again, don't trust anything that comes out of here. So that's pretty cool, I think. Now you can do something called new chat. And I'm going to tell it, respond only in JSON. This talks to the steerability. And again, we'll go back to what is the capital of Spain? And notice it gives me a piece of JSON with capital and Madrid. We'll do the same with chat in France. And then last but not least, so now it does it like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now, if I start learning how prompts work and this works and I can steer it and I can start asking basic questions without getting tons of data or getting deep into the conversation. And then at the end of it all, see if I have, let's see if I can get this right. Okay, let's do chat all in one. I don't know if that's going to work. Come on, GPT-4, figure it out. Sweet. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. So what did it just do? So if I went at it one at a time, it gave me capital, gave the word capital, gave me a JSON object that had capital and what the actual name of the capital was. And when at the end of it all, after I asked it several questions in context with memory, it comes back and it gives me a full capable JSON object. Properly laid out, Spain, France, whatnot. That's pretty cool. And by my clock, it's 7:01. Any questions so far? Am I still connected?
I'm here. I'm taking in a lot. More than questions. I mean, I have like things to talk about with you, like just how cool this is and how impactful this is and how this changes our approach to things. I mean, when you were showing those examples earlier about converting languages, converting program code from one language to the other, I mean, that's a huge enabler, and changes the way we kind of can do things.
100% correct. And to add on to that, I use it to learn new languages. I might take PowerShell and say, convert it to Rust if I want to check that out. In addition, there are people who are top flight engineers in programming. They do this to create React programs for the web, and they create HTML. Did I miss it, or was there a way to switch between chats? Good question. Let's get back to that in a second. So yeah, and people are actually writing and talking about their experience of like, they want to learn something new. There's one guy who's a professor in Pennsylvania, and he doesn't know Python, but he builds small little programs to help him do things just by talking to chat, and it comes out with Python code and he's good to go. So yeah, so a couple of questions. Would you ballpark your monthly API costs? My monthly API costs, so you can tell so I'm building my module, I'm testing it, I'm trying a bunch of different things. My cost is less than $10 a month. And you see what I'm doing here? I do this a lot. I'm trying to live by, I need to build my AI skill set. I've been doing this for a long time, I guess a year or so, well, longer than that, but with GPT and GPT-4 since it's been out. Anyway, so yeah, that's $10 plus it's $20 a month for chat. So that's like, less than $30 a month. Let's see what we got. Another question. Doug, where and when is the presentation? Good question, but I do want to answer some more. So if folks want to hang out, I'm happy to answer more questions. Let me get get my link for tomorrow's, and then you can get on to YouTube. A lot of clickety clicks. I should have had this in but I didn't. Copy the URL. So that's tomorrow. I go deeper into what we just saw. We had another question up here. Where we go? I use it for converting PowerShell bash to be able to run it. Absolutely. PowerShell to bash, bash to PowerShell. Absolutely cool stuff. Yeah. Once you start getting in the flow of this, you'll be amazed. You'll start asking, you like, well, let me ask this question. And it'll be like, oh my God, how did I know that? So it becomes a lot of fun, and that's what people talk about. There goes Judge talking about what's LOTL. Oh, I'm not the only one asking that.
How it's like live off the land. So
Live
you only
off the
use
land.
native tools kind of thing, I believe.
Cool. Yeah, you can, you can talk about Ansible, you can talk about C++, you can talk about C#, you can talk about the weather. You're not going to be too good at that. You can talk about history. You can talk about, let's do this chat. Let's do a new chat. And you can do new chat, and I'm not going to give it anything to steer with, so it just refreshes my chat. And there's a question about, can you switch chats? We'll get back to that in a second. Remind me. Let's see, new chat. So I cleared that out, and let's do a chat. Right, a limerick. We'll go with about Florida. Sorry. Pick on Florida today. Talk about the heat. In Florida, sunshine so grand, the beaches are covered in sand with gators and palms and tropical charms. It's a place that is truly quite grand. That's pretty slick. I can count the number. Sean says I can count the number of times I'm researching an obscure issue and find a solution in VB in other languages, and spent hours. Absolutely. You know what? That's great about the VB stuff. I have not tried to go from VB to PowerShell, but I'm completely confident that it can. And again, if it's not coming up correctly, pay attention to the hallucinations. Pay attention to the vagaries it comes back with. They're teaching moments. And then go back and you can tweak. You can tweak your prompts. This is not a silver bullet. So, but it's an amazing tool to have in your tool set. And a lot of people are beginning to use it. OpenAI has my credit card. I did ask it to generate a number for me to use first. Well, I'm not sure what that means actually, but cool. Live off the land. Florida deserves it. Man, this is a tough crowd. Get history with command like. Okay, so Lars, I think you had a question. As you said at the start, GPT-3 hasn't been trained for a couple of years. That's true. GPT has not. GPT-4 has been trained, has been updated. That's not totally true about GPT-3. They're constantly updating the models, but they both stop in 2021. And we're not going to go down and talk about it in depth, but GPT-4 was less about training the models, because this is really it's really intended that chat is a reasoning engine, not just a knowledge base. And that opens up a whole different discussion, which we're not going to talk about. I used it for Ansible. Excellent. Thank you for Ansible. Salt states. Perfect. Yeah. I've tried with Bicep. I would love to get some feedback on people who tried it with Bicep. I've done it with Azure. I've done it with GitHub YAML files for actions, for GitHub Actions. It's absolutely blows my mind. So what was the question about, Lars? I think you had about switching chats. Is that correct? Cool. So switching chats, good question. I'm not going to go into it, but tomorrow. So now not only do I store that and have a conversation with payloads back and forth to GPT-4, excuse me, I also stored it in a file. And I'm not going to show you how it works. You can watch tomorrow. You can join me tomorrow. So yeah, can you switch back and forth? That's on my feature list. It's in the backlog. So yeah, I want to be able to do, yeah. I want to be able to take in a session I did. So basically it's like being in, go back to the chat web, if it's still around. Yep. So back here, right, you see over here, this keeps, so if I click on this, this brings back all my goodies. This is, and basically I try to model the PowerShell stuff, what they're doing in the web. So I could leave this here for like 10 days and, good try, Steve. My stuff's a little more sophisticated. Only kidding. But yes, it might do a little bit differently because I'm actually bringing back arrays and I want to rehydrate them inside the PowerShell program, inside of PowerShell. So I do it a little bit differently, but essentially that's what it is. And it's a lot cleaner than going through your history. So you can come back in weeks, months, whatever, and all this history. And when you click on this, I get 304. Uh-oh. So when you click on these, it will rehydrate your conversation in the web, and then you can continue to asking questions. Sean, thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. And so it'll hydrate, and my intention is to make it. My stuff works that way. I just have to write a couple of more functions. Or if you want to drop onto the GitHub page, take a look at the code. Happy to take. I've taken several PRs, some really cool ones, and yeah. 304 commands are returned from my history. Oh, 304 commands.
Yeah, so it's good news. I've been using the module a bit for a while.
So let's do the get session. You've been using the chat part?
No, not chat, just AI in general.
Oh, I
The
see what you're
AI
saying.
command. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go back against your history and you look at that, those are different than what the chat is. Those, okay, because this is a special payload in the JSON that has to get set up with the system assistant user kind of stuff. So, okay, we'll do one really quick. So you can do chat session and you can type in 500. Okay. So that's, I'm using a regex. Maybe people will like that or not. I'll change it if it gets too much pushback. So I'm just looking at that. You know, you can look at any unique string. I'm using a regex. Oh, I said regex, but yeah, I'm using a regex. So you can get down to a particular one, and then I have another one that follows get content. So I can do something like get chat session content. And there you go. So it comes back actually as an array. It's not just string and text. And we'll cover a little more. So I'm going to make something called import chat session. So you can take that, rehydrate, good to go. And tomorrow I'll show you how you can change from OpenAI from GPT-4. If you're not paying for it, you can actually do, you can get to GPT-3. And I think that's all the demos I have. So if there's more questions, please throw them out. I would ask to create Ansible playbook to install Apache web server, and it created it. Sweet. Just as a note, you know, it's up, you know, I don't want to put any work on people's plates. I opened up the discussions on the PowerShell AI, and, you know, we're talking about all kinds of like show and tell. Dale would love, I don't know if you're using my module, or you're just using the chat, whichever, but showing some kind of those, that'd be awesome if you could talk about it. Or I don't know if you blog or what media you do, be awesome to check out what you're doing. You know, I'll be sharing prompts, prompt engineering techniques and whatnot. Probably going to build some classes that people can take. So where was I going to go? I wanted to do one more piece. Oh yeah, just as a, so tomorrow we're going to, thank you, Lars. And so tomorrow I'm going to go a little deeper on some of these things, a couple of more examples. So two things. Does anybody want to see a GitHub Copilot really quick? Or does people have to get out? We'll do
No,
it.
people can leave if they gotta go. It's all good. This will be
Okay.
on YouTube. They can catch the ending. But yeah, go ahead. Let's see it.
Okay. So I'll do that. And what I wanted to mention was I've also, so have you heard of something called Azure OpenAI Service? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So Azure OpenAI Service is an offering from Microsoft on Azure. And basically you have to get permission and you have to go through a process. It's not easy. So I got access to it. And basically you spin up your own private enterprise level OpenAI service. And it has exactly the same models. It doesn't have GPT-4 yet. It has an onboarding process that lags, obviously, because as they improve the models and create new ones, they have to onboard it into Azure. But anyway, so you create this service. So I've now built, thank you, Lars, you excellent. Thank you. So I have now enabled this module so you can switch between OpenAI public, and I can switch it on the fly into OpenAI on Azure, which is enterprise level security. Your data doesn't go back to OpenAI. It goes to your instance, and you have all the controls and happiness that you like in Azure. So now this module can do all of that. I'm not ready to demo that. It is in a branch. If you want to look at the branch up on my GitHub repo. So let's go play with my Git. And let's see if I have my demo, and we'll go into Visual Studio Code. Let's play with GitHub Copilot. Now they refreshed GitHub Copilot, which is awesome. Oh, look at that. I already did it, but we don't want that. We want something new. So GitHub Copilot. Oh yeah, let me just. Hilarious. Okay, so I was just looking for my little icon down here on the bottom. It's spinning right now. So my GitHub Copilot is here. This is also you have to pay for this. I'm a Microsoft MVP, so I am fortunate that I don't have to. I think it's $10 a month, but don't hold me to that. So what are we going to do here? So GitHub Copilot I've been using for, I don't know, a couple of years. And this is how I first got addicted to OpenAI. So I was like, wow, this thing is amazing. I used to play with Tab 9. And I love those kind of things. Like you can plug them into your environments, you can guess code, you can do all kinds of goodies. And when I got Copilot, I was like, wow, this stuff is really amazing. And that's what sent me down the rabbit hole of like, how do they do this? Why are they doing it? Where does it come from? And then found out deeper stuff on OpenAI. So let's see how good this is. Now, this usually works out of the box, but I think they're updating things, so it could. So now I'm here. I'm inside of I'm inside of a new file. I created it, set it, the language is selected PowerShell. And basically you can look at that comment. Lars, you're better than getting this stuff than I could. Doug, I was on the podcast 2 weeks ago. Take a listen and learn about my story. Awesome. Will do, Dale. I think I saw that, and that's why your name rings a bell. Awesome. Will do. So now you can think of the comment there as being your prompt, right? And to take that to another level, talk about Andre Karpathy again, the guy who basically created OpenAI in essence. I don't know if that's totally true. Thanks for that link, Andrew. I'll use that. He wrote about a week or two ago, he's a Python guy, and he said, I just wrote a Python program. 25% of it was a comment, and OpenAI generated the Python program. And I was like, dude, share that file. Anyway, PowerShell for developers. There you go. Thank you for posting that. So now this is how you prompt Copilot, right? So now already, so what you see in gray, I didn't do anything. So all in gray, that's a suggestion from Copilot right there. So I could, if I hit tab, I can accept that suggestion, but I don't want to do any more documentation. I'm a developer. Let's get to work. So I can type in the word function. I'm going to give it I give it a little nudge, and it comes back and says, oh, okay, we're going to name it FizzBuzz. Cool. I tell you, I don't know what's going on tonight, but okay. Usually, let me try this again. This is a very sad day. This has worked week after week, but not tonight. There we go. That's what I expected. Don't know why I did that. So sometimes you got to get back up and do some things. So all I did was type in the word function, and GitHub Copilot came back and provided this for me. And I'm going to hit tab and accept it, but eyeballing it, that looks correct. Now, notice I said 1 to 16, so it picked 1 to 16. If you said 1 to 100, it would drop 100 in there. And I'm just going to run that because I trust it. So I ran it. And let's call FizzBuzz. And if you see 14, 15, FizzBuzz is correct because it's divisible by 3 and 5. And that looks pretty good. Now, that's a well-known interview question. So, take it, people go, oh, well, everybody knows that. So, of course, AI is going to know it. You'd be surprised what this thing can do. And once you start typing stuff, I'm going to go into my last part of the demo. And then we can answer final questions and then call it a night. So, I don't know how many people out there do pester testing. I hope you are, because the difference between a good PowerShell developer and a great one is how many tests you write, or how well you do testing. And I actually have tests for my AI module. So write a boilerplate for a pester test for a function called getSales. So already you can see GitHub Copilot is giving me suggestions. I don't like that one. Got to be honest, I need pester walkthrough. Fair enough. I use Copilot while writing a PowerShell class. It created a complex constructor. Awesome. There you go. That's exactly the use case for this kind of stuff. And just think, if you can write a complex constructor in a PowerShell class, you're off to the races. That means, I have a line in my in this. Let me see if I have it. I just bounce all over the place, don't I? I like this. Give a mediocre PowerShell scripter an AI tool and you'll get a mediocre script. Give a good PowerShell scripter an AI tool and you'll get a good script. And what we all are here, we're all great PowerShell scripters. Give us AI tools and you just might find a masterpiece written in half the time. I find this, I don't write the masterpieces, but it does take me half the time to get stuff done. So back into PowerShell, I've got my prompt up top and I'm going to start typing in describe, right? Wow, out of the box, right? So now it's behaving. They must have been doing an update. That's my story. So there's the context. It should return sales. The count should be 3. Now it's just so now this is, it's pretty much on target, but it's hallucinating. So what I'm going to do is we'll leave that there because I'm not going to run these things. And I'm going to just get rid of the context for now. Let's make up another test. We'll just take this for now. And I'm just going to call get sales. Forget about the comment. I don't care. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in, I have an example of what my output would look like, right? So this is as if I ran get sales at the command, let's say, and I copied what PowerShell printed, right? So let's see what happens. First thing it comes up with suggests result count should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I knew there was 9 items. How come I didn't count the region and the head dashes? I don't know. Let's go on to the next line. So that looks good so far. Count is not a good test metric. Thank you, Stephen. Duly noted. If you don't like that, you can then choose what's the command I always get. Show them what's the there's a shortcut key I never use. Oops. There's a shortcut key that you can cycle through different suggestions, and you can actually come in here and comment. I don't want metric A, metric B, control enter. I don't want metric A, metric B. Okay, cool. So that I was looking, there's also an internal one. So these are the different suggestions. So you can actually begin to tweak what you want, and you can actually say in a comment, like what you don't want, what you do want. So let's just go back to this, for example. So if back when I first started playing with this back in November, it used the old syntax, right? So what I would do is I would say, write the boilerplate and make sure you use the new syntax. And sometimes they would get it wrong. And I would give it an example like should -b, and then it was off to the races. So if you don't like count, perfect. Tell it, don't use count. You can customize this with little fuss or muss. Now let's see what else it can do. I don't want that, but I'm going to type in, I want to go after the actual data result. So that's pretty slick. Get content, PS read line, history. Are we back? Awesome. Would you show that example? Don't use count. No, I'm not going to do that. I want to just finish up showing how it deals with the data because I think it's really cool. And you could just put it in the comment. You can just come up here and say, do not use count. And then you might have to put it closer down here, or you could do it right up top. Put this in a block comment like I did, and you can just put all the different things that you want to do. So I just typed in $result bracket. So it says it knows how to do array subscripting, control bracket. Thank you very much. Oops. I'm not having a good time tonight. I know there's a key, and I think they updated the plugin so that you could actually get these, and you can actually cycle through the different suggestions. I'll leave you folks to figure that out. I don't use it. That's why I can't find it, but it's there. So anyway, so it knows how to go after the subscript, and it even knows that .region is a property. And then it says picks up the West. So I'm going to accept that. Now let's go on. State is Texas, looks good. Now this is where Copilot, and this is where GPT, whether you're using my PowerShell module or you're using the web, it really, really shines, not just in doing pester tests, but boilerplate stuff. It's uncanny amazing. Now, so it just did all that, pulled out the right numbers, pulled out the right property names, pulled out the fact that it was an array. let's go one couple more. This is now it gets interesting. So now it says, all right, well, we're going to just walk down this. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to accept that, delete it. And I'm going to say -1. Let's do array slicing. Let's go after the last one. Now I just do a dot. How does it know it's south? Is that correct? Or did it just randomly guess it's the south? Well, it's Delaware. Wow, that's beyond impressive. When I was building the unit tests and the Pester tests for AI and incorporating GPT-4, and I've got way too many function names, but they're all needed to interact with this, I basically sat there and said, I go from the school of Uncle Bob Martin. You know, I've followed him for decades and decades and decades. And he's like, first, what you do is you write a test that fails and then you make it pass, because psychologically that helps. So I would go in and say, okay, ChatGPT, I want to make sure that this function exists. I would start to type out the name. It would kind of know the name, and I don't have it anywhere in my program, in my PowerShell. I would do it and say, make sure it exists. It puts out the right code in an it block, does the proper thing on get command, error action, compares it. And then I would take that name, drop it in my PSD1 so I can export it. Then I would go over to my public folder and create the .ps1, put the function in, and I would run it intermittent to get the negative tests. I would get all the fails, and then boom, it worked. And I just sat there and did this. Okay, I want this function, this, and it started guessing the names that I want. Get chat, it guessed get chat session, get chat session path. And I just knocked this stuff out, and then I started calling the functions, and I'd go back into my functions and it would start generating the code. I was knocking this thing out left and right. So that's the point of this stuff can do it in half the time. So stuff that I would typically sit back and go, well, what do I want to write today? Or I want to experiment with ABC. Well, without this stuff, I would say, oh, that's going to take a few hours. It might even take a day. It might take the weekend. I don't have enough beer. So but with this, you saw what I just did with the tests. And I don't have to sit there and think about tests and do the boilerplate. And there's just many, 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 many examples. Sean, it also does a great job writing comment-based help for a finished function. Yes, it does. Do I have a greet here? So that's true. And it works here. And of course, I said, you know, let's end this, but let me do one more, because this stuff is just too fun. Where's my greet? I don't have it. Yes, I've used it a bunch myself. Yeah, this thing. So let me turn off my chat. And I'm just going to use the basic AI. Yeah, okay, we're going to do this on the fly. Always good for a bad demo. So let's do a function, read param $n. Now, this is what I mean by getting in the flow and become fluid with prompt engineering, what GPT can do. And it's completely different than what Google and Stack Overflow does. And I can just say, am I right? Shoot. Hello, this is not going to be right because the $ stuff's going to get replaced, but come back up here, change this to a single quote. And then down here, we'll close this off. So now I'm going to say ChatGPT. Now I can read this from a file and then use my AI thing. I can say cat the file, AI, and then do my goodies, right? I can create my prompt. Let's say create comment-based help for this, colon. All right. See if it makes me a liar. Boom, I'm out. Now I could come back and say, insert it in line. Now, what's really cool about this and why I like having all this stuff in PowerShell is I can sit there and know that this is probably going to work. And I can just sit there and create my functions and files. And then I can say, dir cat that puppy, pass to the AI with this prompt. And then whatever comes out, save it back to with command help if I wanted to, or back up the directory. And I can automate this entire process across a bunch of things, knowing that I have a good chance that this is going to do all correct. And I then go back and tweak. So David, my primary use case, get item, cool function, generate comment-based help, boom, boom, boom. Awesome. Are you, so I just, so you're using, so David, are you using the, PowerShell AI module for that? Or are you doing,
Yes.
guessing? Awesome. That's exactly awesome. Please go on to the discussion list. I'd love to see you add that.
Absolutely.
And don't have to go into super depth, but it'd be great. See if we can kick off some more discussions. Yeah, so once you start getting into the flow and the fluency of what prompts do and what you can do with this, it becomes insane. Like, oh, I can use it for this. And then you start doing stuff like that you would never, I'll start playing around with stuff, and I could spend hours going, oh, I got nothing done, but I just play with GPT for a while. So I think it's very cool. It needs to have input.output in my custom notes section. There you go. Awesome. Yeah, thanks, David. That's great. And thanks everybody for great questions. And yeah, I would love to see more discussions. I'm mostly on Twitter. I don't know if people are, whatever, but if you're on there, follow me. I'm at dfinke, DFINKE, D as in Doug. Dropping the mic, not yet. But yeah, there's a lot of, I'm also, I post things on Facebook. And I probably, maybe you should stop recording because I'm going to say some stuff now. Well, it's not going to be too bad.